Everybody, this is Jim with Harvest Harmonics, and welcome to the innovations in agriculture. And today I just kind of wanted to take a step back, I think, and just reflect on. We're getting kind of close to Halloween here. It's getting toward the end of the year. A lot of farmers are wrapping up their harvest if they haven't already done so. And now's the time when I think there's kind of that lull, right? There's that period where you're just wrapping up the harvest, or maybe you're wrapping up the paperwork for the harvest, and the holidays are coming up, so you kind of have this, maybe you're pushing for it to work with in the holidays, and then usually around January is probably when you're starting to look at what are you going to do for next year? How are you going to plan? What are you going to do the same? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to manage things? How are you going to read up on new technologies and new innovations and new things? And I wanted to just let you go beyond the Kiminasi plant booster technology, which is, of course, something we've been promoting heavily for the last 2 years. There's a lot of other agricultural technologies out there, and we don't have necessarily a lot of those technologies are not always well known. And so one of the things I get quite often is, hey, if you don't have uh, this peer-reviewed study, or you haven't worked with that farmer, or you haven't worked with this particular research facility, then you're automatically a scam. Just because if you're promoting something without, all of the different bullet points of the things that I'm looking for as a farmer, that would indicate that I will trust you, then all of a sudden you're some kind of scam artist. And I've been getting that more recently, especially with guys that are not even really what we call commercial farmers, right? We're talking, nursery guys, or landscapers, or other guys, and I find it very interesting because the question I ask them is, well, let me ask this question. So, is the fact that this particular professor or this university, that they put their stamp of approval on it, is that the difference between a product working or not working? And the answer is, of course, no. It works. It works, or it doesn't work, regardless of who says it works or not. And they say, okay, good. So you have an opportunity to utilize this technology while we're finishing up our peer-reviewed studies and getting those things going, which are ongoing. We have 34 studies, I think, ongoing right now with different universities and research facilities around the world. And as those come off the presses and the theses are generated, of course, we'll share those with you. And when the peer-reviewed studies and that whole process takes a year, 2 years to get done, of course, we'll share those with you as well. But I guess the question I'd love to ask the viewers, and if you're watching this live, please type them in the comments. I want to be able to get your feedback on this. So the feedback I'm looking for is, what is your threshold of proof? What is it that you require in terms of, hey, this technology looks legit, or this technology looks not legit, or has some questions. And then at the end of the day, aren't you going to also want to use it on your farm anyway? The funny thing that the second thing I always ask people that want university and peer-reviewed studies is, so let me ask this question. So if I had 10 peer-reviewed studies from recognized universities around the world that all said, yes, my technology works, and yes, it gets 20 to 30% increases in yield. Yes, we've seen demonstrable differences in insect resistance and fungal resistance and disease resistance in the treated plants versus control. And they put their stamp of approval on it. Are you going to go and and buy 500 acres or 1,000 acres or 5,000 acres and cover your whole farm? And the funny thing that I get is they said, well, no, I would still try it. I would still try, maybe I'll buy one pivot if they're pivot irrigating, or maybe I'll buy one field instead of my whole farm. I said, well, if you're going to need to try it on your farm anyway, why wouldn't you try it now when there's a money back guarantee and when the prices are low, because we have an introductory price going on right now? Why wouldn't you get this for your farm and try it out and know that you're protected in any case? Why wouldn't you try it out now anyway, instead of waiting 2 years? And then after the peer-reviewed studies show everything that we're already seeing, and then you have to do a whole nother year where you're testing that one field on your farm. That's 3 years. Now, one thing that a lot of farmers don't necessarily track with in a lot of cases is how much is something costing you, not in terms of like how much the price of a particular product, but how much is it costing you not to have it? And in case in point, I talked to a farmer today who had 15 acres on his farm. So it's not a large farm, but he has 15 acres and he's growing radishes and melons and microgreens or cilantro, excuse me. So he's growing basically herbs and radishes. And we went through the numbers and we figured out that every month he's generating, every week, he's generating about $6,000 in top line revenue in terms of his radishes. And he's got serious problems. He says that $6,000 is actually includes a 40% loss of potential production. In other words, if he's got insects and soil problems and other things that are actually costing him probably another $3,000 to $4,000 in terms of yield. And so, we were talking, and I think the quote for his particular farm was somewhere around 7 or 8,000. And he's like, well, I'm only, is there a way we can do this cheaper? And I looked at him and said, let me ask this question. Based upon the numbers you gave me, not the numbers that I have, but the numbers you gave me, you're losing about $3,000 to $4,000 every single week by not having my product on your farm already. Now that he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, let me break this down for you. So we went through the numbers and we figured out, yeah, if I can just increase your yield or your sellable yield by 20%. And in his case, I think we'll probably get to 40 or 50% because I know we can help correct soil health problems. I know we can help correct microbial activity in the soil, and I know we can help correct insect damage and reduce that. So just in there, we'll probably hit 20% increase of sellable production, and will increase his top line revenue by 20%. But then we also have photosynthetic improvements. So we're also going to see faster growth rates and more yield. So he could hit probably 50% or double the yield. And if you've watched any of our previous presentations, you know that we have a number of different examples where we did that on a farm. We increased 50, 70, 100% increases in yield. I don't like to promise that for every farm because every farm's different, but 20 to 30% is pretty common, pretty average. So if we can get 50 to 70%, how much is that? And this particular farmer was looking at it and I thought, here's the thing. And he said, well, I got to talk to my wife and everything. I said, absolutely. Talk with your wife, talk with your partners and the people on your farm, but don't spend a month trying to mull this over. Like this is a decision you should make right away. Not because I want you to buy something, but because you're losing $3,000 to $4,000 every week on your farm in terms of your potential. So in some cases, you really have to look at not the price of everything, but you have to look at what am I losing by not having something. In a different business, when I was doing lead generation systems, they would look at me and says, well, this lead generation system that this other guy has is half the price of your lead generation system. Right. This was years ago when I was selling lead generation systems. Right. And I said, yeah, well, how many leads is his lead generation system going to generate for you? And he said, well, it's been generating about 5 per month. I said, good. Mine delivers 50 per month and it's twice the cost. So you get 10 times the result for twice the cost. So that means you're basically making 5 times more with my product than his. And with farming, it's the same way. Sometimes it's real easy to look at the cost of something and really try to micromanage your cost per acre because you're figuring, okay, if I can just get the cost per acre down on my input cost down by $10 an acre next year or $15 an acre, then I have 1,000 acres. That means I pocket $15,000. Now, that's, of course, one way to be profitable. Reduce your cost as much as possible. But then what if I told you by increasing your cost of your input cost by adding my device by $100, $200, $300 an acre, you could make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per acre. So you could actually end up with a return on your investment of $70,000, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. I have some farms that are actually making hundreds of thousands of dollars more this year because they're using my technology. So yes, my product is not a cheap $10 an acre fertilizer. It's just not. It's not a fertilizer at all, actually. But it will make everything you're already doing more efficient and more effective. So sometimes we lose sight of the fact that sometimes it's not always about the lowest cost. And if you're the kind of guy that is always looking to pinch every penny and squeeze blood out of every rock, then then this product that we have, this technology is probably not for you. I'm going to be honest. I would rather just be upfront with you. But if you're looking to make your farm as profitable as possible and increase your overall revenue as much as possible, then there's literally no other technology or system out there that even comes close to the Kimanasi Plant Booster. We are seeing 10, 20, 30 time return on investments. So every dollar you give me, the farmers are getting $10, $20 back. I mean, and those are just real numbers. So I'd love to find out from you guys, what is it that you guys are looking for in terms of what is important to you? Is it important? Is it more important for you to save as much money as possible, or is it more important for you to make as much money as possible? Because I can guarantee you, in almost every case, when you're looking at finances, you have a lot more potential if you increase your income than you do if you reduce your expenses. Now, if your operation's super inefficient, and super expensive and you're just not getting that, well, maybe you can look at more efficient inputs. But if you're not generating the income that you need, if you're not generating the top line revenue that you need to cover all your costs, then you need to look at how you can increase that. Increasing your top line revenue is going to make a dramatic impact on your profitability because in most cases, in most businesses, you may have an input cost of maybe 20%. And that's a good question you guys should ask yourself too. What is my overall input cost in terms of a percentage of my yield? I take a sip of my Kimanasi water here. Yes, I drink this water. It's a different water for humans, but we do have that. But that's the question you should ask yourself, like, okay, what is the percentage of your input cost versus top line revenue? So if you're a corn farmer and let's say you're getting 200 bushels an acre and you're making, $800, $900 an acre as your top line revenue, and you can look at your input cost and maybe your input cost is around $300 an acre. So you have a $500 an acre differential there. Well, how do you get your profitability up by another $200 an acre? I guarantee you it's going to be a lot easier by trying to increase your overall output by 10% on that land to get to 220 bushels an acre, as opposed to trying to find a cheaper fertilizer alternative or a cheaper spray that could lower your cost by $50 or $100 an acre. It's a lot harder to reduce your input cost by 30 or 40% than it is to increase your revenue by 20%. So that's something to consider. If you're looking for improvements in profitability, you really need to look at your input cost, number one, but you really need to look at that top line revenue. How do I maximize top line revenue so that we have the biggest profit potential possible? I got a call here. Hold on one second. So I'm going to talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys, I'm interrupting my live stream. I'm going to have to cut today's stream short because I have a shipment going out to Kenya. Another farmer in Kenya is getting started with us. So I apologize for cutting this off short, but please join us again next week at Harvest Harmonics. We would love to have you again on the future of farming. Thank you.